What's up, poker people? My name is Wes. This is my poker vlog. Today I've actually got a new location for you guys. This is a private home game I'm going to be playing in. I've been playing in this game for about 4 years, but I haven't had a chance to record it until now. It's a 1-3 game, but it plays more like my 5-5 game that I normally put on the vlog. I'm going to buy into this game for $1,000. Wish me luck. As I mentioned in the intro, this is a 1-3 no limit hold'em game that has no cap on buy-ins, no cap on the straddles. This is the game I modeled my 5-5 game after. Big straddles, big buy-ins, big action. In this hand we had a $35 raise pre-flop and 4 players saw the flop. The flop is King 10-7 with the King 10 of diamonds. A player is going to lead out into the pre-flop raiser for $75. We're looking now at the pre-flop raiser. He decides to call 75. So we already have a lead in the pre-flop raiser on a king high board, and he calls. The other 2 players, they're gonna get out of the way. We're gonna go to a turn card. The turn is the deuce of diamonds. If these guys had diamonds, we're gonna see fireworks. Let's see if he wants to lead again into the pre-flop raiser. He's going to c-bet this turn for $225. In the original pre-flop raiser, he just puts them all in for his $700. He calls pretty quickly. We're going to the river. The first player shows Queen of Diamonds, Jack of Hearts, and the second player shows Ace of Diamonds, Queen of Hearts. The brick river means Ace Queen High is gonna win the pot. When 2 big draws brick out, the bigger one wins. I straddle 25 on my button in this hand. We've got 2 limpers and I just go ahead and check the 8-4 diamonds. The flop is 8-4-3 all hearts. I have top 2 on an all heart board and they check to me. I'm gonna go ahead and bet 2 pair here. I bet $50. Small blind calls and the big blind folds. We're heads up. The turn is the Queen of Spades. If he checks, I'm gonna bet this one more time. I think I can probably only get 2 streets of value here. I'm gonna bet this turn card, and I'll probably have to check down any river. I'm gonna bet 125 in this turn. I think this might be the last street of value I can get, and he folds. I'm in the cutoff on this hand, and there's a $25 button straddle on my left. I look down to 8-9 of hearts. I raise it up to $75. It's over to the button to decide, and he's gonna call. We're going heads up to the flop. The flop is Queen 9-5 with the Queen of Hearts and the 9-5 of clubs. I flop a pair with a few backdoor draws and I c-bet 125. The button raises to 400 and now we have a decision to make. Check out this chart. In green, I show you the cards 9 and 8 that will give me 2 pair of trips. And then in yellow, all the cards that will give me a gut shot, 10, Jack, 7, and 6. And then in red, there's 10 hearts that will give me a flush draw. So there are a lot of cards that can come on this turn that can improve my equity. So I'm gonna call. Raise your hand if you fell for it. I folded, you dummies. The under the gun player straddled for $6, and I'm gonna raise it up with King Queen offsuit. I make it $40 to go. We get 1 caller, and the flop is Jack 8-3, the Jack 8 of spades, and the 3 of clubs. I've got 2 overs and a few backdoor draws. I decide to c-bet $75, and the other player calls. Going to a turn. Pairs the board is the 3 of hearts. This card doesn't help me at all. I decide to check. The other player decides he's gonna bet $150. I've got 2 over cards, and I'm still ahead a few of the flush draws. I decide I'm just gonna see a river for $150. I call and we're going to a river. The river's a queen, the Queen of Diamonds, and now the question is, do I lead out on this river card? If I can't get value when I hit this queen, it doesn't make a lot of sense for me to have called. I decide to bet this $350 on the river. Since I have the Queen of Spades, my opponent can't have Ace Queen of Spades or King Queen of Spades, which means I'm only beat by Queen Jack if he does have a queen. He calls the river, and I show my hand. He's not happy. I'm guessing this move means he had King Jack and we had only 3 outs. King queen again with a $25 button straddle and the small blind calls. I raise it up to 100. The cutoff calls, the button calls, and the small blind calls. A $400 pot going to the flop. The flop is 8 queen. Queen! Oh my god, I flop trip queens! On a flop like this, you should see bet most of your range. I bet 200. The first player folds. But the button, he's way more sticky. He's reaching for chips. Oh, please raise. No, he just calls, but that's good. I'm going to a turn card. The turn is a complete brick, the deuce of hearts. At this point, I decided I was going to check to my opponent, see if he wanted to bet an 8 or some sort of draw. I don't really know if he thinks I'm going to bet a hand that doesn't have a queen in it on the flop and the turn, so I decided to check. He bets 350 into 800. If he had bet larger, I was actually going to check raise. This is a smallish bet. I think it's best just to call this and see if I can get some more action on the river. So I call, and the river is a jack of hearts. Man, if he has queen jack, we're in big trouble. I check and he snap checks behind, which means we have the best hand, and we take down the $1,500 pot. Yet another $25 button straddle and the small blind calls, and I look down at ace jack offsuit in the cutoff. I'm gonna raise it up. I make it 125 to go. The button 3 bets to 425. Small blind isn't happy about that, but he's gonna fold. The player on the button is a very bad player. He could be 3-betting me with anything. He's not very deep, so I'm just gonna take this ace jack and I'm gonna go all in. Gotcha again. I folded, but really he is bad. With a $6 button straddle, I raised to 35 with 8-9 suited in the small blind. The big blind 3 bets to 150. The player on his left already called and I decided to call. We're going 3 ways to a flop. Whoa, the flop is queen 7-5 with the queen 5 of spades. I flop a gut shot and a flush draw. I check and the pre-flop raiser checks. The other player bets 300. When this flop came out, I had planned to check raise, but this bet from the other player is actually more likely to be a value hand, where a bet from the pre-flop raiser could have just been a C bet, so I'm just gonna call, not raise. The turn is a 5 of hearts, doesn't improve me at all, so I go ahead and check. And my opponent bets $400. It's a pretty good price for me. I decide to call. I need a 6 or a spade on the river. The river's an 8, I improved to 2 pair. But that's not what I was looking for. I check. And he checks behind and shows ace queen, and he's gonna scoop the almost 2K pot. I straddle 25 on the button in this hand. The big blind calls, and under the gun +1 makes it 100 to go. I've got pocket 3s on the button. I decide I'm gonna call in position. And the big blind calls as well. 3 players going to the flop, a $300 pot. That's a 3. The flop is king 3 deuce with the king deuce of diamonds. I flop middle set on a coordinated board. The pre-flop raiser c-bets 150. I'm gonna put a raise in here. I'm in position. I can rep some sort of draw, not just a set, and I think I can get called. I raised to 425. The big blind folds and it's back to the original raiser. He calls. The turn is a 5 of diamonds. I don't really think this is a good card or a bad card. It could kill some of my action if he was calling with something like pocket jacks. I have $700 and I go all in. And he folds. Check out my clothing line, Razor Clothing, at razorclothing.com. Poker t-shirts, hats, and hoodies. In the small blind, I look down at pocket jacks. There's a $6 button straddle. I'm gonna raise it up. I'll make it $35 to go. The big blind folds. Under the gun players fold. And I have no idea what I'm acting out with my hands here. The middle position player isn't folding. He 3-bets to 150. It's gonna fold around to me, and I've got the option to 4-bet or just call, and I decided this time to just call. Heads up to the flop with jacks out of position. It's a 10 high flop, 10-8-5 rainbow. I check, and he c-bets 150. Being that it's a 10 high flop, I've got an overpair. I don't really see any reason to fold or check raise. I'm just gonna check call. He could have a lot of different hands that we're ahead of. Let's see the turn. Now the turn is an overcard, it's the Queen of Hearts. This hand's gonna start to get more interesting now. I check to him. And he's gonna keep going. He bets 450. Now, even though this turn was an overcard, it does improve me to a gut shot draw in case somehow my jacks are not the best hand. And it is a card that Ace King is gonna wanna bet. So the fact that he can be betting with hands that I beat, I decide I'm gonna call this turn card. And I call 450. The river's the 5 of spades, it pairs the board. I check. And I have to start getting ready. I might have to call a pot-sized shove. But he checks. I show jacks, and he quickly mucks. I put 25 on the button. We get a few folds. We see a raise to $75. I look down at King Jack suited. I'm gonna see a flop. I'm on the button with King Jack of diamonds, heads up. I see the ace of diamonds, and holy cow, 2 kings come right behind the ace of diamonds. I have trip kings now. He checks to me, and I'm gonna go ahead and bet. I wanna look like I'm taking a stab at this. If he has a hand like pocket eights, he's not calling anything ever, so I go ahead and bet. He calls 100. I don't really think there's a turn card that's bad. Maybe an ace is the only card I don't wanna bet on the turn, and the turn is a 5 of clubs. The pre-flop raiser checks, and I bet 300. I don't really like the sizing that I chose, 300 and a 350, and this is gonna make him fold. The button has a $6 straddle, and in the small blind, I look down at pocket jacks again. I'm gonna raise it up to $35. The big blind calls, under the gun calls, under the gun +1 calls, MP1 calls. We're all calling. The flop is 5-3 deuce with 5-3 of clubs. Not a very good flop for my hand, but I don't want to turn over control just yet, so I bet $100. The big blind calls. He could have any pair or flush draw. But now the middle position player makes it 350. He could also have some sort of pair and draw, combo draw, overpair, but I'm gonna have to be careful. I think I need to call one time. Maybe we get some sort of good run out. But I'm already being cautious. I do call 350. The big blind, that doesn't look like a call. He's gonna raise it up to 950 total. I think this is gonna end my participation in this hand. Yeah, the middle position player calls off all in. I'm getting out of here. Let's watch this from the sidelines. Oh, he flopped the nut straight with 6-4 of spades. All-in player hasn't shown his cards yet. The turn's the ace of clubs. And the river's the deuce of clubs. The all-in player shows 5-6 offsuit with the 6 of clubs. He went runner flush to scoop the pot. What was he doing on the flop? The button puts the $25 straddle on. The small blind folds, I'm in the big blind, and I look down at pocket fours. I just limp in. It's over to the under the gun player who decides to raise to $80. He gets one call and I call. We're gonna go three ways to the flop. The flop is 5-3 deuce with two hearts, so I flop an open-ended straight draw, and I have a pair in my hand. I check, and the raiser bets 125. The player on his left calls, and I'm gonna play this one kind of fast. I'm gonna check raise this hand. I make it 425. The pre-flop raiser puts me all in for about 1500. The other player gets out of the way, and I call. I'm gonna need an ace or a six, and hopefully I can avoid hearts coming. The turn is a seven of hearts, that could be bad. And the river is a jack of clubs. I show my pocket pair of fours, and he shows pocket queens for the win. After this hand, I decided to add on $2,000, so now I'm into the game for $3K. I've got my $25 button straddle on, and the small blind makes it 100 to go. Folds around to me. I have queen jack offsuit, and we're gonna be heads up, so I make the call. The flop is 10-9-3 with a 10-9 of hearts, so I flop the top end of an open-ended straight draw. He c-bets 125. I could raise in this spot, but I'm a little gun shy from that last open-ender, so I just call. Turn is the four of clubs, doesn't help me at all. Let's see if he's gonna bet. Small blind bets $300. I call 300. We need a king or an 8 on this river. We're waiting. The river's an 8. It's the 8 of clubs. The backdoor clubs came in, but I have the top straight. He checks to me, and I bet $575. He's in the tank thinking about it, and he calls. And I win a $2,300 pot. I put another $25 straddle on the button, and they're all just limping. I look down at pocket kings. I'm gonna put a raise in here. I make it 150 straight. I think this could have been a bigger raise, maybe 175 to 225, because everybody just ends up calling. So we're gonna go, what, 5 ways to the flop? And it's not a good flop for two black kings. 7-6-4, all red. I was just gonna check when it got to me, but now we have a player all in for $430 after a bunch of checks. I decide I'm gonna call, and I'm gonna have to fold to any more aggression from another player. But they all fold. We're heads up going to the turn and river. The turn is a 10 of hearts, puts a second flush draw out there. And the river's the queen of hearts, but all he shows is a 4, and I win the pot. Stack update, I'm right around $3,000, and we've got 3 more hands to see if I can spin it up. I'm in the cutoff with a $25 button straddle and the small blind called. I look down at pocket 8s. I decide to raise it up here. I make it 100 to go. The button and the small blind call, 3 ways to the flop. The flop is 4-4 deuce with 2 diamonds. Small blind checks, and I'm gonna c-bet this flop. There's 300 in the pot. There's a few draws out there. I bet 175. The button gets out of the way. It's over to the small blind. He decides he's gonna call 175. And the turn's the deuce of clubs. We have a double paired, double flush draw board. Small blind checks to me. I think my hand's probably good enough to bet again. I bet 350. He calls pretty quickly. Let's see the river. The river's the deuce of hearts. We have deuces full of fours on the board. He checks, and now I have to decide if I'm gonna bet. I think he'll call me with pocket 5s and 6s. I lose to pocket 9s and 10s, which he could have. He shouldn't have any bigger pairs, but more importantly, there's a full house on the board. He might call me with any of his high cards that were drawing to diamonds. I obviously lose to any 4 or deuce, but I bet $400, and he quickly folds. With a $6 button straddle, I look down at ace-10 offsuit in the small blind. In case you haven't noticed, this game's been playing shorthanded most of the night. I decided to raise it to $30 with ace-10 offsuit. I get 2 callers. Then we get a raise coming to $150. Since we are shorthanded, I'm gonna go ahead and call. And we go 4 ways to the flop. There's an ace. The flop is ace 7-6 rainbow. Since we were 3-betting this hand pre-flop, I decided to check, but now the big blind decides to lead $250. You don't see this very often, someone leading out into the pre-flop 3-better. Interesting spot. Under the gun player gets rid of his cards, and now we're over to the guy that 3-bet pre-flop. It's $250 to call. I have top pair, and if this guy just calls $250, I'm in kind of a weird spot. I guess I would just call. Oh, that looks like way more than $250. He makes it $1,000 to go. I'm just gonna get out of the way. The other player puts him all in for about $1,800, and he obviously calls. They discussed a deal for a bit here. They end up deciding to see a turn card. So we're going to the turn. 8-9 is open-ended. The turn's the king of hearts. Doesn't help him with his straight draw. The other player shows 7-6 for a flop 2 pair. They're discussing 1 or 2 rivers, and they decide just to rip it. The river's a 10 of spades and gives 9-8 to straight. I've got the $25 button straddle on. We get 2 limps, and I'm just gonna check the 10 deuce. Oh, I flop trip deuces. I have a backdoor flush draw that may not matter in this hand. Small blind's gonna bet. He bets $50 and the big blind calls. I'm gonna raise it up here. I raise it up to $225. Both players call. We're going to the turn. Turn's the king of spades. If somebody has a bigger deuce than me, they're gonna make a lot of money because I'm gonna keep betting this. Small blind hasn't checked yet. Is he gonna lead again? He bets 300. And the big blind calls? What do these guys have? In a limped pot, I should have one of the best deuces possible other than ace deuce. I think these guys might just be on a flush draw. If I call here, they're never paying me any penny on a river that isn't a heart, so I gotta raise it up. The question is, what's the right size? Because I don't want to tell them, hey, I've got a deuce. They bet 300. I think I'm gonna make it about 800. So I raise to $800. And the small blind just puts me all in for my $2,600. Gets around to me and I call. River's a 6 of diamonds a nice show, and sure enough, he had king 5 of hearts. I take down a $6,000 pot with the Doyle Brunson. And this is my stack at the end of the night, $5,900 for a $2,900 profit. If you like this video, please like and subscribe so that I know that I'm not wasting my time making these videos. I appreciate it.